Elizabeth Taylor didn't just captivate Hollywood, she conquered it. Men across the globe were mesmerized, drawn to her like moths to a flame. She wasn't just a star, she was a force of nature, commanding the hearts of the world's most powerful men. But what made her so irresistible? It wasn't just her beauty or her talent on screen. Those were merely pieces of a puzzle. There was something deeper, something far more magnetic about her. So what turned Elizabeth Taylor into the ultimate symbol of desire? Easy on the eyes. Can you imagine walking into a room and instantly stealing every ounce of attention with no effort required? That was Elizabeth Taylor's superpower. She didn't just turn heads, she commanded the gaze of everyone around her, and it wasn't just because she was beautiful. No, Elizabeth Taylor's beauty was in a league of its own. Those violet eyes, pure magic. They weren't just rare, they were almost mythical. People didn't just glance at her, they stared, mesmerized by the way her eyes seemed to shift with the light, like they held secrets only she could tell. And let's not forget her otherworldly features. The flawless porcelain skin, the perfectly arched brows, the full lips that made every smile look like it belonged on the cover of a romance novel. It wasn't just her face, though. It was the way she carried herself. She had this regal air about her, like she knew she was extraordinary but didn't need to say it out loud. She let her beauty do all the talking. In an era when Hollywood was obsessed with finding the perfect face, Elizabeth was it. She wasn't the typical blonde bombshell or the girl next door type. She was exotic, striking, almost intimidating in her perfection. Directors and photographers couldn't get enough of her, and men, forget about it. They were absolutely captivated, not just by how she looked, but by how her beauty seemed untouchable yet utterly inviting at the same time. Her look set the standard for glamour in her era, inspiring countless imitators but no real equals. She wasn't just admired, she was studied. Every actress wanted to be her, and every man wanted to be with her. Her beauty wasn't just a gift, it was her weapon, her currency, and her legacy. And let's be honest, if you saw Elizabeth Taylor walk into a room, you'd probably forget what you were doing too. That's just the kind of effect she had. Her incredible passion. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't just a pretty face. She was a force to be reckoned with on screen. While her beauty could have easily been her only ticket to stardom, Elizabeth had something more: talent, raw, unfiltered, magnetic talent that made you forget everything else when she was acting. When she stepped onto a set, she didn't just play a role, she became it, pouring every ounce of her fiery personality into her characters. Take Cleopatra, for example. Sure, it was the most expensive movie ever made at the time, but Elizabeth didn't let the grandeur of the production outshine her. She was Cleopatra, seductive, commanding, and utterly unforgettable. That confidence, the way she owned the role, wasn't just acting, it was power. Men were mesmerized by how effortlessly she dominated the screen, exuding authority and allure in every scene. Then there's Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, where she played the fiery, complicated Maggie. That movie gave audiences a masterclass in Elizabeth's ability to navigate emotional turmoil with grace and intensity. She captured the desperation and passion of a woman fighting for her marriage, making it impossible not to root for her. Men couldn't get enough of her boldness, her ability to show vulnerability without losing an ounce of strength. And let's not forget Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. If anyone doubted her acting chops before, this film shut them up for good. As Martha, she was raw, messy, and brutally honest, stripping away every trace of glamour to reveal the depth of her skill. She wasn't afraid to get ugly, emotionally and physically, in a way that demanded respect. It was a role that cemented her reputation as one of the greatest actresses of all time. What made Elizabeth's performances so captivating wasn't just her technique, it was her passion. You could tell she cared deeply about the characters she played, and that authenticity resonated with audiences. Men admired her for more than her beauty. They were drawn to her confidence, her intelligence, and the sheer intensity she brought to every role. Elizabeth wasn't just acting, she was living her art, and in doing so, she captured hearts and minds in a way few ever have. She lived on the edge. When you look at her life, it is not just enough to say Elizabeth Taylor lived on the edge. She was the edge. She thrived on pushing boundaries, both in her personal life and in the public eye, and men couldn't help but be intrigued by her audacious spirit. This wasn't a woman who played by the rules, and that rebellious streak made her irresistible. Her relationships alone could have filled volumes. From stealing Eddie Fisher from Debbie Reynolds, a scandal that rocked Hollywood, to her tumultuous, passionate marriage to Richard Burton, Elizabeth made headlines like no one else. She wasn't afraid to chase love, no matter how messy or controversial it was, and while critics were quick to call her out, men admired her audacity. Here was a woman who didn't apologize for living life on her terms. Her love life wasn't just scandalous, it was epic. 8 marriages to 7 men, each more dramatic than the last, made Elizabeth the ultimate femme fatale. Yet it wasn't just the sheer number of romances. It was the intensity of them. She loved hard, fought hard, and lived hard, creating a whirlwind of passion that was both alluring and intoxicating. Men couldn't get enough of the fire she brought to her relationships, even if it often burned out of control. But it wasn't just about the drama. Elizabeth's scandals highlighted her humanity. She wasn't trying to project an image of perfection. Instead, she embraced her flaws, her desires, and her mistakes, all while refusing to let society dictate how she should live. That fearless approach to life made her even more attractive. She was unpredictable, exciting, and unapologetically herself, a combination that kept men captivated and the world talking. Elizabeth Taylor didn't just captivate hearts, she ignited them. Her scandals weren't just tabloid fodder, they were proof of her refusal to conform, and for men that rebellious streak was nothing short of electrifying. Her refined taste. Her taste for the finer things was legendary, and it was impossible not to be captivated by the sheer extravagance of her world. From the moment she entered Hollywood, Elizabeth embraced luxury with open arms, and her unapologetic indulgence became part of her allure. First, there were the diamonds. Oh, the diamonds. Elizabeth's jewelry collection wasn't just impressive, it was iconic. Men were mesmerized by the way she carried herself, dripping in jewels like they were extensions of her own charm. The famous 33-carat Krupp diamond and the jaw-dropping 69-carat Taylor Burton diamond weren't just accessories, they were symbols of her power and allure. She didn't just wear them, she owned them, commanding attention with every sparkle. Her homes were just as grand as her jewels. Lavish estates, jet-setting vacations, and opulent parties were all part of the Elizabeth Taylor experience. She wasn't afraid to flaunt her wealth, and men admired the way she turned luxury into an art form. Elizabeth's lifestyle was a fantasy, the kind of glamorous existence most people could only dream about. But it wasn't just about material possessions. Elizabeth's love for the good life was matched by her generosity. She used her wealth and fame to champion causes close to her heart, most notably her trailblazing work in HIV/AIDS advocacy. Men were drawn to the way she balanced indulgence with compassion, proving that she wasn't just glamorous, she was also deeply human. Her lavish lifestyle wasn't just about excess, it was about embracing life to the fullest. Elizabeth Taylor knew how to make an entrance, leave an impression, and create memories that would last a lifetime. For men, she wasn't just a movie star, she was a living, breathing embodiment of glamour, passion, and indulgence. Who wouldn't be enchanted by that? She was independent. In an era when women were often expected to play supporting roles, both on-screen and in life, Elizabeth unapologetically took center stage. She was bold, confident, and completely unwilling to conform to societal expectations. Her career choices reflected this unyielding independence. Elizabeth wasn't content to be just another Hollywood beauty. She fought for complex, challenging roles that showcased her talent. When she became the first actress to command a $1 million paycheck for Cleopatra, it wasn't just a financial milestone, it was a statement. Elizabeth knew her worth, and she demanded to be treated as the powerhouse she was. In her personal life, she defied conventions at every turn. From marrying the same man twice, Richard Burton, of course, to walking away from relationships that no longer served her, Elizabeth made decisions that prioritized her happiness and self-respect. Men were captivated by this unapologetic confidence. She wasn't waiting for anyone to save her. Elizabeth was her own knight in shining armor. Even in her later years, she continued to blaze her own trail. She became a successful entrepreneur with her groundbreaking fragrance line, proving that her talent extended far beyond the silver screen. And let's not forget her tireless activism, where she used her platform to raise millions for HIV/AIDS research. She wasn't just independent, she was impactful. Elizabeth Taylor's independence wasn't just a trait, it was her essence. She showed the world that a woman could be glamorous, talented, and fiercely self-reliant all at once. For men, that combination of beauty and strength was magnetic. She was a force of nature, and they couldn't help but be drawn to her unshakable spirit. Her amazing confidence. Elizabeth Taylor exuded confidence that was utterly magnetic, the kind that turned heads and commanded a room the moment she walked in. For men, this quality was irresistible, an intoxicating blend of poise, self-assurance, and charm that made her stand out in a crowd. From a young age, Elizabeth carried herself with an air of certainty that belied her years. She knew who she was and what she brought to the table, whether she was dazzling on screen as Cleopatra or holding her own in the complex emotional depths of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. She always radiated a sense of control. Men admired how she seemed utterly at ease with herself, embracing her identity unapologetically. Her confidence wasn't just about how she looked, though her beauty certainly played a part. It was her ability to use her presence as a kind of armor, wielding it as both a tool of seduction and a shield against criticism. Elizabeth had her share of public scrutiny, from her tumultuous relationships to her battles with addiction and illness. Yet, she never shied away from the spotlight or let the opinions of others dictate her choices. This self-assuredness extended to her personal life, where she refused to compromise on love or ambition. Elizabeth didn't just date or marry, she lived boldly, unapologetically chasing her passions and desires. Men were captivated by her ability to own her narrative, even when it was messy or controversial. In a world that often tried to box women in, Elizabeth Taylor stood out as a woman who created her own definition of success, beauty, and happiness. That unshakable confidence was magnetic, drawing men and the world to her like moths to a flame. It wasn't just her beauty or talent that left people mesmerized, it was her complete and utter belief in herself that, above all, made her unforgettable. Her sexy duality. You see, Elizabeth Taylor possessed a rare duality that men found utterly captivating. She was both approachable and unattainable. On one hand, she exuded a regal, larger-than-life presence that made her seem like royalty. On the other, she had a warm, down-to-earth charm that made her feel real and relatable. It was this blend of glamour and authenticity that created her magnetic pull. On screen, she portrayed queens, temptresses, and deeply flawed women with the kind of grandeur that made her unforgettable. Whether she was Cleopatra ruling over Egypt or Maggie fighting for her place in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Elizabeth had an intensity that was impossible to ignore. Men were drawn to the commanding power she wielded, as if she could control the entire world with just a glance. But off-screen, Elizabeth wasn't just the untouchable goddess. She had a genuine warmth and wit that made people feel connected to her. She laughed with abandon, spoke her mind, and had a playful sense of humor that caught people off guard. Men loved how she could be both fierce and fun, someone who could hold her own in an argument but also throw her head back and laugh like a carefree girl. This duality extended to her romantic life, where she was both the heartbreaker and the heartbroken. Men admired her passion and vulnerability, seeing in her a woman who loved fiercely and lived authentically, even when it came with risks. Elizabeth's ability to balance these two sides, divine and human, untouchable and approachable, was a key part of her allure. She wasn't just a star, she was a paradox, and for men, that made her utterly irresistible. She wasn't one thing or the other, she was everything all at once. And that, perhaps, was her greatest charm. She had a big heart. Beyond the beauty of Hollywood life, Elizabeth Taylor had a heart as big as her stardom, and men admired her deeply for it. She wasn't content with being just a screen legend. She wanted to make a difference. Her tireless advocacy for AIDS awareness and research in a time when it was considered taboo showcased her compassion, bravery, and unwavering commitment to justice. Elizabeth's activism wasn't a publicity stunt or a fleeting interest. She threw herself into the fight with the same passion she brought to her iconic roles. In 1985, she co-founded the American Foundation for AIDS Research, AAMFAR, becoming one of the first celebrities to speak out on behalf of those affected by the disease. At a time when much of society turned its back on the AIDS epidemic, Elizabeth was a beacon of hope and a fierce advocate for change. Her humanitarian efforts weren't just impressive, they were deeply personal. Elizabeth didn't shy away from standing beside those who were marginalized or stigmatized, showing empathy and determination that inspired millions. For men, her activism highlighted an entirely different side of her, a woman who wasn't just beautiful or talented, but also deeply kind and courageous. What made her efforts even more appealing was how genuine they were. Elizabeth wasn't afraid to use her platform to raise money, awareness, and support for causes she believed in, even when it was controversial. Her willingness to speak truth to power, to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves, and to do so with grace and passion, made her all the more extraordinary. Elizabeth Taylor's legacy isn't just about her iconic roles or stunning beauty, it's about the impact she made off-screen, proving that her heart was just as captivating as her talent. For men who admired her, this combination of glamour and grit was nothing short of awe-inspiring. She is timeless. One of the biggest reasons men loved Elizabeth Taylor was her ability to transcend time. Decades after her rise to fame, she remained just as captivating, continuously reinventing herself and leaving a lasting legacy that extended far beyond her acting career. Her stunning beauty and remarkable talent made her a global star, but it was her ability to remain relevant, to stay in the public eye and still be adored, that made her a true icon. She wasn't just a star of her time, she became a symbol of Hollywood glamour and the epitome of feminine allure for generations to come. Even after she transitioned from acting to focus on her humanitarian work, Elizabeth's name still carried weight. Men looked to her as the ultimate symbol of both classic beauty and modern resilience. She had this rare ability to hold attention, whether she was gracing the silver screen in her youth or advocating for causes later in life. What made her timeless was her authenticity, her ability to stay true to herself despite the ever-changing landscape of Hollywood and the world. Elizabeth's personal evolution reflected the many phases of life, from glamorous movie star to passionate activist, from beloved icon to matriarch of her own extraordinary legacy. Through all of it, she remained unforgettable. Men admired this enduring quality in her. She wasn't a fleeting trend or someone who faded into obscurity. Elizabeth Taylor became, and remains, the benchmark of timeless beauty, class, and grace. No matter the era, she was a star that never lost her shine, a woman who defied time and continued to captivate hearts, proving that true icons only grow more legendary with age. Her strength in chaos. Men were drawn to her not only because of her beauty and talent, but because she represented a woman who loved fiercely and didn't shy away from the raw complexities of life. Her 8 marriages, including 2 to the love of her life, Richard Burton, became a hallmark of her existence. Their love story, passionate, dramatic, and full of ups and downs, captivated the public. While many viewed Elizabeth as a symbol of eternal romance, she was also a symbol of heartbreak, as her personal life unfolded in the public eye. Men admired her resilience in the face of such public turmoil. They saw a woman who didn't just love, she loved with intensity, with authenticity, and without fear. But it wasn't just her relationships with men that made her story so compelling. Elizabeth experienced the death of friends, family, and, eventually, some of the loves of her life. Through it all, she remained a figure of fascination, not only for her physical beauty, but for the emotional depth she exuded. Men admired her ability to navigate the emotional complexities of life with dignity, even when it felt like her heart was broken. Her vulnerability in the face of these experiences was part of what made her so attractive. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't a woman who hid her pain. She was real, raw, and unapologetically human, and that, for men, made her even more alluring. They saw her as a symbol of how to love deeply, live fully, and endure even the most painful losses without letting them define you. Her complexity and the way she handled love, loss, and everything in between made Elizabeth Taylor a woman that men not only admired, but genuinely respected. She wasn't just a Hollywood legend. She was a woman who lived her life unapologetically, showing the world the beauty in both love and loss. Her style. Another major reason why men were drawn to Elizabeth Taylor was her impeccable and unforgettable style. She wasn't just a trendsetter, she became synonymous with glamour and elegance. Whether it was the stunning gowns she wore on the red carpet, her ability to carry off even the boldest fashion choices, or the effortless way she exuded sophistication, Elizabeth Taylor's sense of style made her a standout. She was always ahead of the curve in terms of fashion, and her wardrobe became iconic. Her love for luxurious jewelry, particularly her famous collection of diamonds, made her even more alluring. Perhaps the most famous of all was the Taylor Burton diamond, a 33.19-carat diamond Richard Burton gave her after their marriage, a gift that captured her larger-than-life persona perfectly. It wasn't just her clothing that made her a style icon. It was her ability to wear them with grace and confidence that drew men to her. What really set Elizabeth apart was how she used her style as an extension of her personality. She didn't just wear the latest trends, she made them her own. From her trademark bold brows to her glamorous updos, every aspect of her appearance was carefully crafted to enhance her natural beauty and convey her strength, passion, and status. Men admired how effortlessly she combined glamour with authenticity. It wasn't about the clothes, it was about how she owned them. Her style wasn't just about external beauty, it spoke to the way she saw herself and wanted the world to see her. Elizabeth understood the power of appearance and the impact of a well-executed look, and she used it to her advantage. That mastery of self-presentation made her not just a beautiful woman, but a truly unforgettable one. Her signature style made her a lasting symbol of elegance and sophistication, one that men would continue to admire long after her passing. Whether in film or in public life, Elizabeth Taylor's fashion choices were as captivating as her performances, securing her place as one of the most stylish women to ever grace the Hollywood stage.